One player, one name, an icon who put the beautiful in the game. The boy called Edson who would forever be Pelé. The only man to have won 3 World Cup titles, Pelé dragged football from black and white into colour and made Brazilian yellow look perfect next to World Cup gold. The trophy may have been called Jules Rimet, but it was peppered with the fingerprints of Pelé.
I got the gift from God to play football. I try to give my best, to give the best for the people, for the crowd.
Before he was the world's greatest, to a young Pelé, his father was the best footballer around. But when he got injured and his club stopped paying him, Pelé became a shoeshine to help the family out. But every day after school, he put on his football boots, and his talent meant at 16 he joined the Brazilian side Santos. And then at 17, he was called up to join the Brazilian national team to play in the 1958 World Cup in Sweden. This was when he changed everything. Because before then, Brazil was haunted by 1950, when the side lost to Uruguay in the final at the Maracanã in Rio, a moment that brought tears to Pelé's father's eyes.
My father used to say, "Oh, man should be strong, man doesn't cry." Then I saw my father cry when Brazil lost the game. Then I told him, "Father, no, don't worry, I'm going to win 1 World Cup for you, don't worry." I was 9 years.
The promise was kept. Pelé became the youngest goalscorer ever in a final, and Brazil won their first World Cup title.
I don't think his importance in Brazil can be understated. If you look at Brazil before 1958, it wasn't this sort of football nation. 12 years later, when Pelé wins his 3rd and final World Cup in 1970, everybody in the world knows Brazil for its football. It's a football nation, and it's a football nation because of one man. He's this guy who always has this great sense of occasion, that he creates iconic moments. He won't ever disappear in a World Cup final. He'll score one of the greatest goals ever in 1958. He'll score that brilliant header in 1970. And I think that's the thing with Pelé. People get into the argument of who's the greatest, and I think these sort of cross-generational discussions aren't particularly helpful. But I think the one thing you have to always say with Pelé is that he did it first.
If club football then and now was focused on the European scene, Pelé stuck to his roots. He never left Santos for any of the big European clubs.
I think the other thing people forget with Pelé is that he's very, very Brazilian, and he loves being Brazilian. He played his whole career in Brazil, technically. So he's this very proud Brazilian man and very proud of where he's from and who he represents. And certainly when we talk to him, I think the thing he was proudest of was putting his country on the map.
He would spend the last 2 years of his playing career at the New York Cosmos, one of the first big names to try to make soccer, a rival to the other, more popular American sports.
A privilege for me to meet the outstanding soccer players in the world today.
For Pelé defined football partly because his rise coincided with the televised game and mass media. The skills, the smile, the success, unbeatable and oh so marketable. But there could be 2 sides to Pelé. He was on the one hand the gentleman. He could have held a grudge with Gordon Banks for that famous save. Instead they were friends, and he was there to unveil Banks' statue in Stoke in 2008. And he used his status for good. Following his retirement, he sought to help children out of poverty, made a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador, as well as an honorary knight in the UK. That set him apart in many ways from Maradona, the bad boy, the other South American great. They both shared FIFA's Player of the Century award in 2000. But the other side of Pelé was the unfaithful husband, admitting to numerous affairs, as well as long denying children out of wedlock.
And under General Branco, the army revolted and seized Rio de Janeiro.
And there were some who questioned his place in Brazilian history. The height of his fame came after the 1964 coup that led to 2 decades of military rule. Pelé went along with the status quo, and many argue he should have spoken out.
I think his defence is that he had no interest in politics. He didn't want to get involved in politics. He didn't see it as his job. His job was to play football, and that's how he would give joy to people. And I think he's this very proud Brazilian who thinks, by putting my country on the map and by representing Brazil on the global stage as a footballer, I'm doing far more for my country than any politician ever could.
Pelé was the ambassador for football at a time when the other greats, Michel Platini, Franz Beckenbauer, became mired in scandal. As the game became less about ball to foot and more about cash in hand, Pelé leapt above, just as he did on the pitch. A different era. Because for all the money in the world, Pelé reminded us that you can't change the basics. 90 minutes, 2 teams of 11. and there was only ever one man you wanted wearing the number 10.
What's your ambition?
My ambition.
You're still a young man.
Thanks, God. My ambition is to make people happy.
Well, you've
Always.
done that all your life.
I tried.
So thank you very, very much.
My
Pele.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck. My pleasure.